Jasmine, back when I'll be on the channel. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Okay. So today, we got another Larry Bird video on the channel, and I'm excited because this is not the basketball Larry Bird. This is more the backstory, the history of Larry Bird. And sometimes I feel like we need that because sometimes I feel like people judge people off of their career and you don't even know them, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully this video gives us some truth. You know, we know not all videos are true, so let's just hopefully this is the truth. And if you know anything different, please let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know any other videos you'd like to see me do. That being said, before we get into it, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, push the notification bell. That being said, let's go.
Fantasy game, a dream game. We've seen the league go back and forth, you know, and crowd is standing up. It goes now to Bird. Bird goes up top. And a 3-point field goal to Bird. 4 seconds left. He hits it, and it's all tied up again.
Off rip, you can't even get mad how the announcers sound, because it's like, I'll be hyped too, because that'd be crazy to see in person. You just literally hit a 1-foot, what was it, 3-pointer with 4 seconds left?
All right, Ainge is going to put the ball into play. And where do we go? It's going to go.
That's
to
crazy.
Bird. He's got a shot.
You do it back to back. That's crazy.
And he's got it, a 3-point field goal. And that's that. It's all over. Can you believe that? Can you believe it? He hit a 3-pointer.
Do y'all see that score? 140 to 139. Bro, where was the defense? 140 points? That's crazy.
No time on the clock, and they win the ball.
Moments like these were commonplace at the TD Garden over the course of Larry Bird's illustrious NBA career. Larry Bird, a man once revered as a god, but on the basketball court, it seemed that he was. Whether it be his penchant to humiliate opponents with his otherworldly creativity with the ball in his hands, or with his unrelenting trash talk, tales of Bird's heroics and sacrifice are that of legend in the basketball universe. However, while stories of the feats that Larry Bird accomplished on the hardwood continue to echo and reverberate throughout history, what about tales of how Larry Bird became Larry Bird? How a boy from French Lick, Indiana transformed into the man who many across the world came to love so dearly. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we're going to be taking a look at today. The origin of Larry Bird and the man who created him. Shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. SeatGeek tends to attend live, but their early lives are filled with turmoil. A majority of NBA players don't emerge for the most ideal circumstances.
Who is that? Is that Derrick Rose? It looks like Derrick Rose, don't it? But come on.
As for the most part, their early lives are filled with turmoil and grief caused by the effects of crippling poverty. Exposure to such an environment at an early age oftentimes being the catalyst that fuels their desire, their need for greatness. Born into a situation that affords them with very little to lose, they're able to bet it all, swing for the fences, and pray that their determination and efforts will someday pay off and provide both themselves and their families with a lifestyle that goes well beyond anything they would have previously been able to comprehend, especially in today's world where...
Let me ask y'all this, since he's talking about it. Do you think that's why some NBA players fail? Like, they don't make it that long in the NBA because it's like so much pressure on them to get to the NBA, and it's like once they get there, they're like either the journey there, or once they get there, they get mentally like ill, like even without them saying it, you know? Because I don't know if y'all really keep up with the NBA, but John Wall had that problem. You know, he said that he had problems because he was like, so many people depended on him to make it because he had to help them out. And it's like, why put that pressure on a kid? Because you know they're kids when they go to the NBA. They're like 18 years old. But why put that pressure on a kid to help take care of you? You know what I'm saying? And like, it hurts them so much longer in the long run. And then when they get hurt, it's like, oh, you're done, you know? But come on.
Being elite in between the 4 lines found on the hardwood result in riches that most couldn't fathom even in their wildest of dreams. That, though, wasn't necessarily the case for Larry Bird. Now, don't get me wrong, his
Look at
upbringing was far from
him.
anything that would be considered ideal, but what was different about Bird was that his passion for the game of basketball didn't come from the thought of the riches that would come his way as a result. Since back in the days of Bird's youth, being a professional basketball player was more or less a side hustle as opposed to a lucrative career, and the NBA as a whole at the time didn't seem like it was destined to be around much longer.
That's crazy to think as the NBA as a side hustle. That's crazy. But then again, like he said, the NBA wasn't popping like it back then. And who saved it? Larry and Magic. But he thought of this side hustle. That's crazy. So what was he thinking his regular job was going to be?
The Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlains, and Bill Russells of the world all retired, the league was now faced with the problem of not having adequate enough star power to overshadow the infestation of players addicted to various illegal substances. So with all of that in mind, the question of what in the world drove Larry Bird to become the legendary player that we all know him as today becomes that much more intriguing as a result. To find the answer to that question, you need not look any further than the people responsible for bringing him into the world in the first place, Joe and Georgia Bird. Growing up wasn't always easy for me. My family didn't have much, so we appreciated anything we had. The way I grew up was very different from most people who I have met. Very different than most people grew up is nothing short of an understatement. Born and raised in French Lick, Indiana, for the longest time, Larry Bird was unaware of the depths of financial disparity that his family faced, mostly because in the small town of French Lick, everyone was poor. Both his father.
And that's what should grind people to be the absolute best that they can be. And sometimes it doesn't because they feel like there's nothing outside of that world but being in that world, if that makes sense. Like, I hope that makes sense. Like, sometimes it can motivate the mess out of you to get out and be like, I gotta go get it. I gotta be better than this, you know? Or sometimes it literally limits your mindset to be like, dang, my whole family was like this. The whole town is like this. I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna be just like them, you know?
And mother worked tirelessly throughout the week in order to provide for Larry and his 5 siblings. His mother as a waitress at 2 different restaurants, while his father constantly switched from working one factory job to another. His parents, working long hours throughout the day, Bird and his siblings were often left searching for ways to occupy their time outside the house, which for the longest time was done through the sport of baseball, which he and his brothers enjoyed playing on a concrete field not too far from his home, which in retrospect might not have been the best idea since errant balls typically resulted in broken windows that the Birds couldn't afford to fix. It was during these tough times, however, that Bird learned some very important life lessons that he would carry with him throughout his playing career, of which none were more important to Bird than the concept of working hard for a day's pay no matter what the circumstances, a lesson Bird would learn from his father. See, even though Joe Bird switched jobs on a regular basis, he seemed to always take pride in whatever work it was he was doing at the time.
See, that's that respect, and that's that being humble. Kids peep everything, literally everything. Even when you think they're not peeping it, even when you think they too small to peep it, they peep everything. They remember everything. And him saying that about his dad and how Larry like saw that, it's crazy.
When you're doing something, make sure you see it to the end. Put the finishing touches on it, then you can have something to be proud of.
Yeah.
In essence, that is what Joe Bird told his son Larry that instilled the belief in Larry that no matter what happens throughout the course of a season, awards, accolades, milestones, it was all meaningless unless he and the Boston Celtics finished the year by winning a championship. After all, how could someone as competitive and driven as Bird ever take pride in losing? This was the guy who played through numerous injuries that would have sidelined other players all because he wanted to see the job to completion. Unless he could not physically walk out of the court, Larry Bird was going to give you everything that he had, which happens to be another trait that Bird picked up from his father, as Larry recounts a time when his father came home from working a long day of construction aided by 3 other men. The man had to help Joe Bird not only walk home, but also take off his boots as Joe's foot had been badly mangled on the job. According to Larry, it looked like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Despite that,
Can we just really pause and take that in right now? Because there might be one of you all doing the same thing right now. And I like that quote that he put in there with Larry's dad saying, whatever it is, see it all the way through. Basically, whatever you love to do, whatever you're trying to figure out to do that shit. Figure it out. Don't stop until it's finished. Whatever it is. This is deeper than I expected. This is way deeper than I expected. Keep going. Literally. You. Keep going.
That though, Larry said his father Joe never complained a single time, but instead merely propped his foot up, grabbed a couple of beers, and when morning came, laced up his boots as tight as he could, and went back to work. See, Joe Bird realized that missing even a single day of work will result in his family being unable to eat that day. With his wife working 2 jobs in order to make ends meet, how could he stay home from work just because of a jacked up foot? The man had his pride after all, and he was willing to do whatever he felt was necessary in order to provide for his family. Despite his efforts though, Joe Bird was barely able to make ends meet. Most of the time after the Birds paid the bills and brought groceries for the week, they'd be lucky to have $20 left over. And even the groceries that they bought never seemed to last past the 4th day of the week. After that, the Bird siblings were forced to survive off eating sliced bread along with whatever leftover condiments they could find until their father got paid again.
But that's crazy. So it's like, how much was he getting paid? I'm trying to think back then, the minimum wage back then, which was probably insane. That scared the mess up out of me, y'all. Which was probably insane. She was a waitress at 2 different places, which I know that probably wasn't nothing. And he was at, did he say 2 factory jobs? That's crazy. Y'all gotta let me know y'all thoughts. If that ain't motivating, again, like I said, it could affect you either way. But if that ain't motivating to go get it to help go get it for your family, but it's also a lot of pressure. That also goes back to me saying that's a lot of pressure because you see how you was raised, you remember how you was raised, you remember how your parents struggle, and it's like, I gotta make it for them type thing. And that could be a lot of pressure, but, and that just explains why Larry was just so locked in on that court. Like, let me stop talking, come on.
Eventually, the financial bind that had ensnared the Birds took a toll on their family, mainly Joe and Georgia Bird. With Joe refusing to sell a house that they could no longer afford, the prospects of any type of change in the near future looking bleak, Joe and Georgia eventually divorced, forcing Joe to give up the house and move back in with his parents. And the divorce, losing the house, and moving back in with his parents on top of the fact that he couldn't afford to pay the child support that he owed for 6 children, sent Joe Bird spiraling into a deep and dark depression. And as the holidays came around, it became clear to Larry that the funk his father was in wasn't going to end anytime soon, if at all. I'm not going to be around much longer. No use in me living this way. You kids would be better off if I was gone.
That is sad as heck. So sad. Dang. I didn't know he had 6 siblings. Does Larry Bird have kids? Is he married? You know, Larry's life is really private. But I feel like y'all be doing a lot, so let me know.
When those words traveled from the mouth of Joe Bird into the ears of his adolescent son Larry, even at a young age, Larry knew what was going to come next, even if everyone else thought Joe Bird was just trying to make another one of his melodramatic attempts at a joke. It was no joke. Having served in the Korean War, Joe Bird knew that if he died, his family would receive a lump sum of money from the government. And for a guy who felt he could no longer provide for his family, his own death seemed like the only option. One morning, not too long after, police showed up to Joe Bird's current residence at his parents' house with a warrant for his arrest due to past due child support payments. Seeing as to how small of a town French Lick was, the officers knew Joe Bird, and Joe Bird knew the officers, which is why when he asked them for an hour or 2 to get his things in order, they obliged, saying they'd be back later that day to take him in. By then, though, it would be too late. After the officers left, Joe Bird used the time to say his final goodbyes to a few of the people he was closest to in town, headed to the pub for a final pint of beer, went back to his parents' home, and ended his own life in their backyard with a shotgun. His family was devastated. At the time, Larry was 19 years old and just beginning to ascend into the player who, alongside Magic Johnson, would breathe a breath of life into the exasperated NBA, making it even sadder.
Perfect example of pressure. And we were just talking about not giving up. You can't, even when it gets hard like that. But in my opinion, I feel like in the dad's eyes, he felt like I have to sacrifice myself for them to be able to live. Because I think he took it as they ain't got no money. I can't pay anything. I'm not doing nothing. I'm not doing enough to help support them. That's why I lost them. And he's like, maybe if I do this, they'll be taken care of. That's my opinion why he did it. Not because of more so my kids got taken and I'm mad and you know what I'm saying. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Y'all gotta let me know what y'all think. And then the fact how Larry Bird held himself together during those times and still put on a show and got drafted and literally saved the NBA during that. That's what I'm saying. You never know what people go through. That's why this world got quit judging people, talking about people. You know what I'm saying? Because like you never know what somebody go through. Like what? Like I've never heard this story ever.
Since had Joe Bird stuck it out just a little while longer, things would have started to turn around for both him and his family more than he could have ever imagined.
Wow. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was pretty deep. Sorry that it was sad, but I enjoyed it still because we learned something. Well, I learned something that I never knew. Is his mom still alive? Like, is his siblings still around? Like, you don't hear much about Larry at all. So hopefully you all can fill me in. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, notification bell. Talk to me down below. Let me know any other videos you'd like to see me do. With that being said, see you guys next video.